Bonjour et bienvenue à Le Français avec KJ. Hello, I'm KJ, your host and teacher, and today we're going to continue talking about the past. Because you see, there are two ways to make the past in this passé composé sense, and we've only dealt with one of them. So let's look at the other part of the passé composé. You see, we can talk about completed actions, okay, or we can talk about completed actions that require you to move your body through space and time, which is called a verb of movement, or things that you do to yourself, which is called a reflexive verb. Today we're going to focus on those verbs of movement and reflexive verbs, which get conjugated differently than those completed actions we did in the first passé composé video. If you haven't watched that one, I strongly suggest that you go back and look at it so you'll understand a little more what we're doing. So first let's talk about how we're going to form the passé composé with its auxiliary that is going to be different because we're talking about verbs of movement. We're going to use the verb être. So here I have conjugated être, je suis, I am, tu es, you are, il est, elle est, on est, okay, he, she, or one is, nous sommes, vous êtes, et ils, elles sont. So we are, you all are, and they are. All right, so that's just the first part of the passé composé here, because remember, a composed verb has two parts. So again, we're going to use past participles. Mind you, these are not the verbs we're going to use, but just to refresh our memory, you take the ER off of ER verbs and you add an accented E, so you get something like parler. RE verbs, you take the RE off, you add U, you get something like fondue. And for IR verbs, you take the IR off, you add I, and you get something like fini. Okay, but let's specifically talk about some examples here. Okay, so here's a reflexive verb. Elle se lave. So in the passé composé, this would be, for example, il s'est lavé. So she washes herself, he washed himself, okay? This is a classic one. We're going to, il est monté, he went up, or he got on. Il est descendu, she went down. Elle est descendue. Notice that there is an E here. The reason why that E is here is because we are talking about her. And when you conjugate with être, there must be an agreement in gender and number. All right, well, how many verbs of movement are there? Quite a few. This is the Dr. and Mrs. Vandertramp way of memorizing which verbs are verbs of movement. Very important, okay? You can take a note of this, screenshot it. It's a great way to memorize this list. You can actually look up Dr. and Mrs. Vandertramp and find all different kinds of posters and things that will help you remember this. This series of verbs that talk about moving your body through space and time. An important thing to note here is, notice that devenir, which means to become, is a verb of movement. Notice that rester, which means to stay, is also a verb of movement, even though it seems like you're not moving at all. Notice that naître, to be born, and mourir, to die, are also verbs of movement in French. It definitely gives some insights onto the way that French think about life and language. So there's another way to remember these verbs, and that's called the house paradigm. Notice we have being born, to stay, going up and going down. Many people use this house paradigm because it's much easier to, basically get a mental image of what's going on in the verb of movement. Okay, so now it is your turn. Here are some sentences in the present tense. Take some time to see if you can write them in the past tense using the passé composé. You can pause this video and give it a try. Okay, did you write il s'est rasé for he shaved himself? Okay, or he shaved. Nous avons nagé, we swam for nous nageons. Okay. Tu es dormi tôt, you slept early. Elles sont parties, they left. Notice again that we're talking about L, and so over here we have added not only an extra E but an extra S, because when we're conjugating with être, we must agree in gender and number. Okay, that again is a lot to learn in one spell, so let's just take some time out, try some exercises. Again, I strongly encourage you to check out conjugatemouse.com. I will put the link for that in the description of this video. If you have learned anything from this video or you haven't found it at all useful, please click like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. Until the next time, à bientôt.